Let me now take you across to our expert guest, former senior diplomat, Ambassador Anil Wadhwa. Good evening to you, Ambassador Wadhwa. What do you make of what's happened? It is something to feel very, very elated, as a lot of people in Gaza do. There is a lot of relief on the Israeli side as well, because the hostages, now 3 of them have been handed over to the IDF by the International Red Cross. But significant challenges also lie ahead in implementing just the first phase of this deal.
Absolutely, I think of course, it's good news for uh, both sides, especially the Palestinians. But as you rightly said, it remains to be seen how the deal will go through in the future, because it's got 3 stages, and it's got a lot of pitfalls as we go along. Because even if a little incident happens and one side blames the other and raises suspicions, then it can come to a situation where Israel is going to say, in particular, that because of domestic politics, that this is not working for us, and go back on it. On the other hand, if the Palestinians, on Hamas in this case, provokes Israel, also is going to have repercussions. So both sides have to be very careful as they go along. There are 3 stages, long way to go. But I think it's important that the hostages are returned to their loved ones as quickly as they can. There's a time frame, and I think both sides have to just follow it now.
Right, we're getting live images as well of people collecting on both sides. I believe I can see Hamas fighters in this frame at the moment right now. But on the other side, we also see a lot of people gathering in another part of Gaza, where it seems that there is a mood of elation. These are images that we're getting from that side. And at the same time, there are those 3 freed hostages that are being awaited to reach that particular area that has been readied for them, so that then they can later be rejoined by their families, or restored to their families as well. Ambassador Wadhwa, you mentioned how domestic politics in Israel could play a huge part in the success of this deal, and that at the moment, the way things are developing, it just gives you some pause to think about whether this deal can be followed through, because of the situation that is developing as far as the domestic politics in Israel is concerned. Why do you think that?
Well, because we've seen 3 resignations today from the right wing in a Jewish party, and there are a couple of other ministers who are planning to resign. After that, it's a question of whether the right wing parties in Israel, the rest of them, whether they stick to the deal or they want to, follow through. Netanyahu on his own also faces a lot of challenges going forward. And for him, if the first phase is implemented and the hostages are exchanged, after that, there will be a challenge. I would think that when you come to the third stage in particular, once the hostages are fully restored back and the bodies are also given back to each side, then there's a question of reconstruction of Gaza. And at that point, of course, Israel will lose interest and the right wing parties will lose interest. So the momentum has to be kept up somehow. And only if that momentum is kept up, then the real meaning of this deal will be known.
Yeah.
So we have a long way to go.
And do you think Donald Trump and his administration will play a critical role there? Because that's what Joe Biden just now suggested when he made that address about his first comments on this ceasefire deal being implemented. And he said that, look, we got the deal, we'd been working on it for so long, and the situation also developed in a manner that it favored the deal having taken place. But now it's Donald Trump who has to run with the balls. So do you think Donald Trump, since he has been taking credit for this deal being worked out, will ensure that the deal stays the course?
Yes, I think that's the hope that the Palestinians can have, that Donald Trump will insist that the 3 stages are gone through, and that there should be an interim administration followed by a proper administration which is run by the Palestinian Authority in Gaza, replacing Hamas. And of course, that is something which is not really palatable to all the factions, all the parties in Israel. But it's only him who can ensure that there is enough pressure from the United States to do that. I don't think there's any other country which can influence Israel in the current circumstances to stick to the three phases as we talked about. So yes, there's a lot of hope in on Donald Trump and his administration now.
Okay, and even without the Hamas being in conflict with Israel, there's enough to keep the region on the boil, because there is always Iran in that equation, and Iran's other proxies which are still active, such as the Houthis.
Yes, of course, but we must remember that the Iranians at the moment are considerably weakened, and also any provocation on their part would have consequences. And I think the Iranians know that. There's also hope that there would be a revival of the JCPOA, which has been abandoned for many years now. And if that promise is there for the Iranians, then of course we can hope that there would be no more provocations which follow through. Donald Trump, on his part, has already said that if there are any more provocations, they'll be dealt with severely, and that's in the run-up to his inauguration. Now it remains to be seen what his administration does as a follow-up, and we know about it in the first week itself after he assumes office. So this week will be crucial in that respect.
But what if it's Israel which takes action against, for example, the Houthis or the Iranians? What happens then? Because then again, Iran or the Houthis will feel it incumbent upon them to hit back, and that's what leads to setting the ball rolling again on conflict.
Yeah, so it's a question of how both sides play it, and of course how the domestic politics plays out in Israel. If the situation of Netanyahu is stable and there is enough support for him to continue, despite this peace deal, then of course we can hope that there would be no more destabilization or provocative actions by either side. But otherwise, it's all up in the air.
And if the situation is stable, particularly for Israel, won't elections have to be held? And then, of course, uncertainty again for Netanyahu himself, because we've seen how things have not been, very forthcoming for him as far as the people's opinion is concerned, particularly in certain phases of this conflict.
Yes, you're right, because if elections are held, but of course there will be stages leading up to the election, so Netanyahu will have some time before that happens. At the moment, of course, there's a lot of pressure on him to make sure that this at least the first few phases, which is first and the second phase of this deal, go through. And after that, we'll have to see how Israel responds, depending on the domestic situation. But I have a feeling that there is little to choose now, because having taken this step and the cabinet having approved this deal, that Israel will follow through at least till the hostages are released. There's internal pressure in Israel also to get the hostages back. So that's another major factor in this equation.
Certainly, I mean, that is once you get the ball rolling on the return of hostages, it will be very, very difficult to justify why that process should be halted midway before all the remaining hostages are returned and then returning to a conflict. So that will be a critical factor, no matter what the provocation. But let's see what happens. Thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador Wadhwa.